Hello everyone, welcome back to the course on Instrumentation and Process Control. Myself, Neeti Mehta, Assistant Professor at Chemical Engineering Department, LJIET Institute of Engineering and Technology. So let's just start our session with new topic, second order system. So what do we mean by second order system? Second order system is basically described as those systems whose relationship can be expressed in second order differential equation or a second order differential equation that relates the output and input with time as independent variable. All such systems are termed as second order system, right? Those systems whose input and output can be correlated to each other using this kind of second order differential equation form. Now, there are basically two categories of second order differential equations or second order differential systems, right? First one are inherently second order and the second one are combination of first order in series. That is inherently second order. There are few systems which are inherently second order. That means they automatically behave as a second order system. For an example, U-tube manometer is a second order system. Damped vibrator is inherently second order system. Now, coming to examples of combination of two first order systems. So, interacting system and non-interacting system, those two are the example of combination of first order system which are connected in series whose final output is in the term of second order. Individually both the tanks are first order, but we are combining both the tanks together. So when we combine both of them together, then it will form a second order system, right? Now, here in this session we will start solving this particular derivation of second order system, which is U-tube manometer, or it is also known as simple manometer. Here in this figure, as you can see, let us just simply consider a simple U-tube manometer, and this is the initial condition of manometer when the pressure at both the limbs or both the legs of manometer is same, that is P1 is equals to P2, which is equals to 0, right? And the length of fluid, that is the length of manometric fluid inside this manometer is L, correct? Now, once we apply the pressure, then what will happen when we connect one end of manometer to our pressurized system? Then due to that particular pressure, there will be a displacement of manometric fluid inside the manometer, as you can see here. Initially it was in this rest position, we applied pressure to this particular limb, so the manometric fluid will start moving to the other limb, right? And this is the difference, as you can see here. This is the displacement of manometric fluid. So this is the initial condition of manometer and this is the final condition. Now, for this we need to do two assumptions. First one is flow in the manometer is considered to be laminar, and the second assumption is steady state friction law for drag force in laminar flow will be applied, right? These are the two assumptions which we are doing here. Now, in this particular case, as you can see, we are dealing with force, we are dealing with motion. So, this is the case of momentum balance, right? Since there is mass involved in it, since there is force involved in it, and since there is displacement involved in it, That's why it is the case of momentum balance. So we will be doing momentum balance here for the manometric fluid. Sum of the forces which is causing fluid to move is equal to rate of change of momentum of fluid. Correct? Now, what are the forces which will compel the manometric fluid to move? That is equals to unbalanced pressure force causing motion. Due to change in pressure in both the lamps, there will be a movement of manometric fluid. Correct? So that's why we are saying here unbalanced pressure forces in both the lamps is one of the reason for motion, minus frictional force which is opposing the motion. When manometric fluid is trying to flow, there will be a friction offered by wall of manometer which will oppose that movement of fluid. Right? So this is the sum of forces causing fluid to move is equals to unbalanced pressure force in the lamps minus frictional force. So how we can write this? So what is unbalanced pressure force? Unbalanced pressure force can be written as P1 minus P2 pi d square by 4 minus rho GH pi d square by 4. Why we are doing this? This is due to the gravity, right? Now, what are frictional force which is causing fluid to move or which is opposing fluid to move? That is skin friction which is applied at the wall. Now, it is again equals to shear stress at wall into area of contact. So, we can directly write it as 8 mu V by D into pi dl. Pi dl means surface area of your manometer, right? So this is all about unbalanced force. Now, what is rate of change of momentum? So rate of change of momentum can be written as change with respect to time of mass, velocity, right? Mass into velocity is momentum. So change in momentum is written as d by dt mass into velocity multiplied by momentum correction factor. We have added this momentum correction factor to overcome any kind of error, right? So mass can be find out by rho pi d square L by 4. Rho, that is density, which is in the form of kg per meter cube, into pi d square by 4 into L. This is area into length. Area into length is volume, that is meter cube. So density, which is in kg per meter cube, into meter cube, which is volume. So you can easily get your mass, which is kg, as meter cube will be cancelled out, right? Now momentum correction factor here is beta, and velocity can be written as change in velocity d by dt of v bar, this way. And this v bar is our average velocity, which is 1 by 2 d square h by dt square. Why we have done d square h by dt square? Because this is change in height of manometric fluid with respect to time. That's why it is written as d square h by dt square. Average velocity v bar is dh by dt, but since we are double differentiating it, d by dt of dh by dt, that's why it is written as d square h by dt square. Now simply we will put all the values of equations in equation number 1. So it will be rho pi d square by 4 L 4 by 3 into 1 by 2 d square h by dt square equals to P1 minus P2 pi d square by 4 minus rho gh pi d square by 4 minus 8 mu d 1 by 2 dh by dt into pi dl. Just simply rearrange it, keep only this P1 minus P2 term at one side and all other terms in other side, and divide the entire equation by rho g pi d square by 4. So you will get this particular equation. Now this equation is in the form of tau square d square y by dt square plus 2 zeta tau dy by dt plus y equals to xt. This is the basic equation of second order which we have seen in our first slide, right? Where the value of tau square is 2L by 3g and 2 zeta tau is this. So putting the value of tau here, you can easily get the value of zeta, right? Once we take Laplace, we will get this equation in the form of ys upon x of s equals to 1 upon tau square s square plus 2 zeta tau s plus 1. This is the desired equation for simple U-tube manometer. Now let's just see how our second order system responds to a step input. If we are giving this x of s as step input, so what will happen? Instead of x of s, we can write 1 by s, right? So it will be 1 by s. So ys equals to 1 by s into 1 upon tau square s square plus 2 zeta tau s plus 1. Now, depending on the value of zeta, zeta is our damping factor, right? Depending on the value of damping factor, there are 3 different cases. Case number 1, when the value of zeta or damping factor is less than 1. So, nature of roots will be complex and the system is termed as underdamped system. Underdamped system refers to that there will be an oscillation in our system and our system is not stable. Correct? Case number 2, when the value of zeta, that is damping factor, is equal to 1. At that particular case, the nature of our roots will be real and equal and our system is said to be critically damped. That is, it is just stable. Our system has just attained stability in case number 2. And in case number 3, when damping factor value is greater than 1, at that particular case, the nature of root will be real and our system is said to be overdamped or non-oscillatory. So there will be no oscillations, it will be stable. Depending on all the 3 values, we are having 3 different formulas as you can see. For case number 1, we are having this particular formula. For case number 2, we are having this formula. And for 3, we are having this formula. Now, we don't need to go into derivations of this formula, but we need to mug up this formula for our numerical and especially for our gate preparation methods. Right? So, you must know what is underdamped, what is critically damped and what is overdamped and what are the formula which are used to represent response of those conditions. So this is all about second order system and step input method for second order system. Other topics of this particular chapter we will be covering in our next session. Hope whatever we have covered today is quite clear. Thank you.